Hello, beautiful people. It is so amazing to be here and to see all of your smiling, warm faces. Thank you for all the love that you're radiating. I'm going to start tonight off by asking a question. How many people, by show of hands, have ever thought about what their purpose is in life? Okay, so just about everybody. Beautiful. So this question is relevant to my life because I'm a coach and I help people reach their highest potential, and also because I'm a human being, and so of course I thought about my own purpose. And in working with clients and also finding my path for myself, I've developed a pretty astute little shortcut for coming into what would be a really meaningful route for us to take if we are to fulfill some way of giving back, of contributing to society. So do you guys want to hear the shortcut?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So the shortcut is to look back in your childhood and see what you didn't get, what you didn't have access to, what it was that you needed to feel safe, comfortable, and whole that you were never given. So maybe this was the satisfaction of your survival needs. Maybe this was love and acceptance from a certain parent. Everyone's is going to be different, but think about, what did you not receive? So adverse experiences, especially the definitive core ones we experience as kids, are actually an incredible cause of positive forward motion in our lives if we choose to utilize them as such. And to kind of showcase for you how that works, I'm going to give you an analogy of a couch. So imagine you sit down on a couch and it's nice and comfy and warm and fuzzy. What happens? Yeah, nothing. I mean, you might take a bong rip and watch some ancient aliens, but for the most part, you're just going to be, sitting there. But what happens if you sit down and you sit on a thumbtack?
Jump out of that.
Exactly, you jump up, you're propelled into motion. You don't have a choice but to act. And the same is true in our lives with any sort of adversity, especially with the wounding that happens before we are fully socialized. So to demonstrate how the shortcut works, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own life and how I came into my purpose. So I'm a native New Yorker. I'm the youngest in my family. I have an older brother named Jonathan. He's 10 years my senior. And my parents are hippie New York liberals and both clinical psychologists. They decided to become Freudian analysts back in the 70s when that was cool. I don't know if you guys know anything about Sigmund Freud, but his famous quote is, "So tell me about your mother." But imagine in that scenario when Sigmund Freud is your mother. A little sticky. So I've always been the black sheep of the family. While 3 of them are intellectuals, my brother now has his PhD in clinical psych as well. I've always been the artistic, more magical one of the clan. So I was out playing with my fairy friends and creating dramas in which I was a mermaid and they were mermen, while my parents were inside discussing the latest additions to the DSM-4 and the hypocrisy of George Bush Sr.'s politics. So you can see that I never really fit in that way. So besides feeling like the weirdo of the family, all was hunky-dory until I was about 8 and my brother left for college. And that was a big turning point for me because I started to be really badly bullied in school. I think the other kids could sense that I was an empath and just super sensitive, and it made me a perfect target for their aggression. And I switched schools 4 times in 5 years, but the problem followed me everywhere. Really hard time for me as a kid. I can still remember myself sitting at the top of our 2nd floor landing and just thinking how lonely it was in the house. So my brother had gone off to school, and I think my parents were probably working on their test reports, and I just remember the silence was so deafening, and even at 8, feeling so polarized. And I remember thinking to myself, when I'm all grown up, I'm going to have like 8 kids because I'm never going to live in a house that's this quiet again. I think back then 7th Heaven and Buffy and all those shows were big, so maybe I was just, carrying over a little bit. But yeah, so when I was 12, that was a really big, significant year for me and for my family. 9/11 happened, which sort of just caused this inundation of fear, just, as a New Yorker and as an American, just, I'm sure you all remember. And then my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So he was 52 at the time, which is young for that diagnosis, and that rocked our world. And right after that, my mom's father passed, and she went into a very deep depression. And that was the first time where home was no longer where I could seek solace. That was no longer the safe haven where I got the attention and the love and the validation that I needed. And I remember seeing my parents as humans for the first time rather than just mom and dad, and seeing that my dad's hands shook, and my mom was losing weight and looked older than the rest of the parents. She was older, to be fair, because I have an older brother, but I just thought, God, if I can't find the love that I'm looking for here, fuck it, I'm just gonna go and do my own thing. And that was a really huge, I would say, the one of two huge shifts for me in life. And what the shift really was that I found my mask. Now, do you guys understand what I'm saying when I say I found my mask? Okay. Does anyone want to tell me what that is? Sarah?
So you found that like your way of coping with it, living in and kind of hiding what you're feeling.
Yes, exactly. So your mask is a formula, a unique formula, and we all have one that we've developed to sort of cope or get by. It's something that garners us the approval of others. So for me at that time, it was being pretty, being tough, and being voiceless. So just going along with what everyone else wanted to do, no matter whether it felt good for me or not intuitively. So if you're picturing a cute cheerleader as me in high school, I want you guys to just scrap that idea because I'm from the suburbs of New York and I don't know if any of you guys know about that, but when we're in high school, so just to paint a little picture, I had a big black puffy North Face, a baby fat sweatsuit, so a matching velour sweatsuit, and earrings, hoop earrings the size of your face, and maybe a Newport 100 cigarette on a good day. I mean, it was, yeah. The cheerleader prototype came more into play when I went to college. I arrived there and the thugged out white girl thing just did not fly. That was not cool at U of M, at University of Michigan. And so I tailored my mask to be a little bit more, I refined it. And I became a type A perfectionist. So on the outside, I was a snobby popular girl. On the inside, I was self-loathing and just terrified of failure. I dealt with anorexia and depression and was addicted to Adderall and different pills. I wore cool clothes so the girls would think I was cool. I slept around so the boys would like me. Typical sort of college falling, dark night of the soul sort of thing. And during this time, I was lonelier than I had ever been, actually, because I think when you are being rejected for who you authentically are, at least you're not rejecting yourself. When you're wearing that mask and you're so glued to it, it's like you've preemptively rejected yourself. And then people liking you doesn't even matter because you're so alone on the inside. And you guys get the point. Where I'm going with this was that my upbringing, my youth was very, very lonely. The turning point, so the main turning point in my life came after college. My body just gave out on me. I was so exhausted. I woke up every day, I had no energy. I couldn't retain any of the nutrients in my food, so I just wasted away. I got down to 85 pounds, even though I was eating and eating and eating. I had rashes all over my body. I would have fevers of 104, 105 out of nowhere, drenched in sweat on the subway, passing out, totally unexpectedly. It was terrifying. I saw 50 of New York's top doctors, and none of them could find a diagnosis. It was like I was diagnosed with lupus, with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, everything you can imagine. And finally, I was given the diagnosis, a dual diagnosis of chronic autoimmune Lyme disease, which is a lifelong degenerative disorder, and thyroid cancer. And the story is one for another day because I could talk your ears off about this, but what I will say is that getting sick was the best thing that ever has happened to me. It made me realize that I was living an inauthentic life, and up until that point, I had never had a reason to look within and see how I was doing and really listen to the soul that I am. I never had an impetus to turn inwards and see, what would make life worth living for. And all of a sudden, here I am giving myself, I have a PICC line going from my arm to my heart, giving myself IVs every single day on the verge of death. And it really caused me to wonder, okay, so if I'm gonna get better, what am I getting better for? What am I going back to that is worth going through this and surviving? And it was not the life that I had been living previously, let me tell you that. So in that way, this was the biggest blessing, and it led me to the truth also, which is that your beliefs create your reality, and that happiness, it comes from within, not from having things, not from getting validated, not from people liking you or thinking you're cool. And I healed myself with no conventional medicine. Again, a story for another day, but this is how my path was so radically shifted. And I would love to talk to anybody who wants to hear more about that. I changed my beliefs and my body transformed is basically the bottom line. And I moved to LA shortly thereafter to pursue my passion of acting. And I got out here and I didn't know anybody. And at the time I'd been dating someone who was in AA. And I was so envious of this incredible group of homies that he had that just really saw each other and were champions of each other's success and got each other in a way that I had never experienced before. And the relationship faded, but my envy did not. My heart was longing for what it had never known before, which I didn't even know I was even missing until then, which was a density of network and closeness within a community. I dreamed of having a sense of home and belonging amongst my people, but the issue was, who were my people? Because I wasn't an addict, and I didn't have some obscure hobby like naked bungee jumping or stamp collecting, so it wasn't like I could just rope up a bunch of people from something like that. And I really had to think, what is it that I'm calling in? And what I ended up coming up with was a byproduct of my healing journey. I wanted to create a tribe of people who were committed to working on themselves from the inside out, who understood that happiness comes from within as does beauty, who are committed to being the change in the world. So the Rise, the conscious community that I started 2.5 years ago, started with 4 people in my living room who didn't know each other and who I barely knew. They were like the only people who I thought might even be slightly interested in this idea. And I was moving at the time and I had no furniture, so we all just sat on my bare wood floor, and I told them what the vision was and literally was so afraid. I was like, these people are going to think I'm such a weirdo. And they were stoked. They were so stoked. It was like we were mutants with superpowers, and we'd never met another mutant with superpowers before, and we all got together and we're just like, oh my god, I'm superpower. And it was just such a beautiful beginning. So the next meeting had 10 people at it. The following had 15. Fast forward 2.5 years later, and there's 1,000 of us, badass creators, artists, and entrepreneurs from all over the world. I got my tribe tattoo 5 months in when we hit 100 people in our Facebook group. And for the first time in my life, I knew what it meant to feel like I was truly part of something. My whole paradigm for what life was, what life could be, shifted, and it all made sense of why I had gotten better, what I had to heal for, what I had to create. So my purpose in life is community. The Rise has changed me in every way you can imagine, and a lot of other people in every way you can imagine. People have met their life partners through the Rise. They've healed trauma and addiction. I mean, it's incredible what community can really do. And so if you have a solution to a problem that you've been facing, you can bet your bottom dollar that other people out there are looking for the same solution. I didn't know at the time that what I was doing was giving myself a gift that I had always wanted. But when I saw that, when I made that connection, it was a huge aha moment for me, because I'm an investigator and a coach, and I thought, oh my gosh, is this what purpose is? Is it actually giving yourself a gift of something that you've been longing for and then giving it to other people? And I started to do a little bit of field research. I started to ask people who I knew were really in alignment with their missions, who felt really passionate about their careers. Guys, is what you're doing something that you actually are giving to yourself because you didn't get it when you were younger, or it's a core wounding or a core need that needs to be fulfilled, and you're actualizing it by giving it to yourself and giving it to other people? And the answer was always yes. So in closing, I just want to reiterate what it is that we have learned here today, which is A, if you're looking for your purpose in life, please take a moment to ask yourself, what would little Molly, or what would little whatever your name is, need to feel and feel, totally guided and totally protected and loved and fulfilled, and then give that to yourself and then give it to the world. And B, we are never alone in what it is that we need, and when we give to ourselves and we heal ourselves, we are always, always, always giving back to the people in our lives and to the world around us. Thank you so much.